On the night of my 18th birthday, my mom canceled my party because my brother threw a tantrum. Before you decide I'm overreacting, stay with me until the end. Turning 18 was supposed to mean something. Not just legally, emotionally. It was the age everyone told you marked the beginning of independence, of being seen as an adult. For me, it was the first birthday I'd actually been excited about in years. Not because it was extravagant, but because it was mine. My name is Nora, and that week our backyard looked like proof that someone cared. I'd spent days helping Mom string warm white fairy lights across the fence, carefully untangling them so none were crooked. I baked cupcakes myself, vanilla with strawberry frosting, lined them up in neat rows on the kitchen counter, and even bought those cheap gold 18 candles from the grocery store. They were already sitting on the table, waiting. My phone buzzed all day with little "can't wait" messages from friends. Everything felt fragile but hopeful, like if I didn't move too fast, nothing would break. Ethan, my older brother, hadn't noticed any of it. Ethan was supposed to be on a road trip with his friends, driving 3 hours away to a concert he'd been talking about for months. He left that morning blasting music, barely glancing at me as he slammed the door. By late afternoon, though, the house changed. The energy shifted. The shouting started in the driveway. His car had broken down somewhere off the highway. The concert was ruined. His friends were furious. And suddenly, the world owed him compensation. I heard him through the walls, pacing, swearing, demanding sympathy like it was currency. Then came the sentence that still rings in my head years later, sharp and casual and cruel. If I can't have fun, then neither can she. He didn't even say my name. I was in my room, half-dressed, touching up my makeup when my phone buzzed. I smiled automatically, expecting a birthday text. Instead, it was from Mom. "Hey sweetie. We're going to cancel tonight. Something personal came up. No explanation. No apology. Just that." I stared at the message, rereading it, waiting for another one to follow. Maybe a clarification. Maybe a "we'll reschedule." Nothing came. I went downstairs, confusion tightening my chest. Mom was in the kitchen, avoiding my eyes, wiping the same clean counter over and over. Dad sat at the table scrolling on his phone, like this was any other evening. "What's going on?" I asked. Mom sighed like I was inconveniencing her. "Your brother isn't in a good place right now." That was it. That was the justification. Not "I'm sorry." Not "this isn't fair." Just a quiet implication that his disappointment mattered more than my milestone. By 7 o'clock, the backyard lights were still glowing. The cupcakes were still frosted. The candles were still waiting. But the driveway stayed empty. No doorbell rang. No laughter drifted in from the gate. My phone, which had been buzzing all week, went silent. I sat on my bed and listened to the quiet settle in, heavy and final. That was my breaking point. Not tears, not yelling. Just a calm, devastating clarity. I realized that if I stayed, this would keep happening. Different days. Different excuses. Same result. So I packed a bag. Not dramatically. Just enough to leave. So I zipped it closed. One thought stayed with me, steady and certain. I didn't have to do anything to get revenge. All I had to do was walk away. Because what happened after that night turned one ruined birthday into the kind of karma my brother never saw coming. I was halfway through shoving my old camera into the bottom of my backpack when my mom yelled up the stairs for me to come down. Not asked. Yelled. That sharp, warning tone that meant this wasn't a conversation. It was a correction. I froze for a second, my hands still on the zipper. Then I slung the backpack over my shoulder and went downstairs. They were all waiting. Mom, Karen, stood by the kitchen island with her arms crossed, lips pressed thin like she'd already decided I was guilty. Dad, Mike, sat at the table, shoulders hunched, staring at his hands as if calm might magically appear if he avoided eye contact. And Ethan leaned against the counter, scrolling on his phone, visibly bored. 3 against 1. An intervention disguised as concern. Karen spoke first. She always did. "We need to talk about your behavior," she said. I blinked. "My behavior?" "Yes," she replied, exasperated already. Storming off. Packing bags. Creating tension in the house. After everything your brother went through today. There it was. Ethan's horrible day. The broken down car. Towing fee. The ruined concert. The tragedy that apparently outweighed my entire existence. He had a really hard day, Nora, she continued. You know how sensitive he is. I looked at Ethan. He didn't look sensitive. He looked irritated that this was taking time away from his phone. I shifted the backpack higher on my shoulder. Why did you cancel my 18th birthday without telling me? The question landed harder than I expected. Dad finally looked up. Mom's jaw tightened. That's not what happened, Karen said quickly. I told people you were sick. With a fever. I laughed once, short and hollow. You lied. I protected your privacy, she snapped. What was I supposed to say? That you were sulking? That word. Sulking. Like I was 5. Like this wasn't my 18th birthday. Erased with a text message and a shrug. I took a breath. You cancelled it because Ethan said if he couldn't have fun, I couldn't either. Ethan scoffed. I didn't say that. You did, I said calmly. Word for word. He rolled his eyes. You're being dramatic. You're whining about cupcakes. Something in me shifted then. Not anger, clarity. That I started listing things. Not loudly. Not emotionally. Just facts. Remember movie nights? Said. When I sat on the floor because Ethan got the couch. Or road trips where we only listened to his playlists because mine were annoying. Or when his laptop broke and you bought him a brand new one. And I got his old one that froze every 10 minutes. Mom waved her hand. That's different. How? Silence. That I turned to Dad. In 18 years, I asked quietly. Has there ever been a day that was actually about me? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Then said, I just want everyone to stay calm. There it was. His specialty. Peacekeeping at my expense. Karen exhaled sharply. Nora, you're stronger than this. You've always been independent. Ethan needs more support. He's fragile. I nodded slowly. So what you're saying is, you don't worry about me. That's not. It is, I interrupted. That's exactly what it is. Ethan finally looked up from his phone, irritation flashing across his face. God, you're making this whole house toxic. Everything has to be about you. I stared at him. It's my birthday. He laughed. See. You're still doing it. The room erupted then. Voices overlapping, accusations flying. Karen accusing me of being selfish. Ethan blaming me for ruining the family mood. Dad repeating, let's all just calm down, like a broken record. And suddenly I didn't feel small anymore. I felt done. I reached down, adjusted my backpack and headed for the door. Karen gasped. Where do you think you're going? I turned back once. Somewhere I don't have to earn the right to matter. No one followed me. No one stopped me, and as I stepped out into the night, past the still-lit backyard, past the untouched cupcakes, I realized something important. They thought this was the end of the problem. They had no idea it was just the beginning. Right in the middle of all that noise, the doorbell rang. Everyone froze. The shouting stopped mid-sentence like someone had cut the sound. We all turned toward the front door. Dad frowned, confused. Mom looked annoyed, like the interruption itself was offensive. I heard the door open, then his surprised voice. Lisa? What are you doing here? Aunt Lisa stepped inside with a small suitcase in one hand and a gift bag in the other. She took in the scene in a single glance, the tension hanging in the air, Ethan's scowl, Mom's stiff posture, my backpack still slung over my shoulder. I came for Nora's birthday, she said simply. No one spoke. Lisa was my mom's older sister, the kind of woman who didn't waste words or soften them to make people comfortable. She lived in Portland, worked in finance, and showed up exactly once a year, usually for my birthday. She always said it mattered to mark milestones. Her eyes drifted past us to the backyard. The fairy lights were still glowing. The cupcakes sat untouched on the table, frosting perfect, candles unlit. Mom recovered first. She's sick, Karen said quickly. Fever. Chills. We cancelled everything. Lisa's gaze slid back to me. I was standing there in jeans and a t-shirt, no blanket, no tissues, no medicine anywhere in sight. Funny, Lisa said. She doesn't look sick. Karen's smile tightened. Teenagers exaggerate. Lisa didn't respond to that. Instead, she looked directly at me. Nora, she said gently, what actually happened? It hit me then. Harder than any insult or argument, and no one had asked me that all night. I swallowed and told the truth. All of it. That my party had been cancelled without my consent. That my brother's concert had fallen apart. That he'd said if I can't have fun, then neither can she. That Mom sent a vague text instead of speaking to me. That this wasn't new. It was just the loudest example of something quiet and constant. I told her about movie nights on the floor. Road trips with only Ethan's music. The new laptop he got while I made do with a broken one. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just laid it out. When I finished, the house was silent. Karen scoffed. You know how teenagers are. Everything feels like the end of the world. And Ethan's had a hard time. Lisa turned slowly toward her. Karen, she said, calm but sharp, I don't care how hard a day he had. This was her 18th birthday. Then she dropped the bomb. You know, Lisa continued, I thought I was helping a struggling family. Dad stiffened. For the last 2 years, she said, I've been wiring money every month to keep your coffee shop open. Ethan's head snapped up. Mom went pale. You called me during the pandemic, Lisa said, eyes never leaving my parents. Crying. Said the lease was about to fall through. That you might lose everything. I believed you. Dad opened his mouth. Closed it. I did not sign up, Lisa went on, to fund a system where one kid's meltdown matters more than the other kid's milestone. Karen's voice shook. Lisa, we have bills. Employees. The lease. Lisa raised a hand. The deposits stopped today. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Dad's face drained of color. You can't just. I can, she said. And I am. She turned back to me then, her expression softening. Nora, she said, you can come with me. Portland. Finish school. We'll look at colleges. You deserve a home where your birthday doesn't get cancelled because someone else had a bad day. My heart pounded. I looked at my parents. At Ethan. No one argued for me. No one apologized. That was my answer. I tightened my grip on my backpack and nodded. Yes, I said. I'll go. And just like that, everything changed. For the first time in my life, there was a door open that they didn't control. I didn't make a list. I didn't sleep on it. I didn't wait for some perfect timing. Okay, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I want to go. The room reacted instantly. Mom's face hardened. You're tearing this family apart over one bad decision, she said, like this was a tantrum instead of a choice. You're being dramatic. Dad stepped forward, palms out. Let's calm down. We don't have to decide anything tonight. We can talk tomorrow. Lisa didn't hesitate. She's 18, she said. She gets to choose. That's when Mom turned on her. You're trying to steal my daughter. Lisa met her stare. No. I'm giving her an option. While they argued, I went upstairs. Packing didn't feel emotional. Felt precise. Low. Notebooks. My old camera, the one I'd saved for and fixed myself when it broke. I held it for a moment before placing it gently in my bag. This is mine, I thought. All of it. Downstairs, the argument continued, voices rising and falling, plans being made about me without me. No one asked what I wanted. No one tried to understand why this mattered. When I came back down with my bag, Mom looked at me like she'd already decided how this would end. Don't expect us to be waiting when you decide to come back, she said. I nodded. Then don't expect me to keep pretending this is normal. Dad stood there, silent. No hug. No goodbye. Just that same helpless posture, like neutrality was a virtue. Ethan glanced up from his phone long enough to mutter, "Unbelievable," then went back to scrolling. That was it. The door closed behind me with a soft, final click. Not a slam. A line being drawn. The drive from Seattle to Portland felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life through a window. The city lights faded. The highway stretched on. I replayed everything in my head, wondering if I'd overreacted, if I'd misunderstood, if I'd been unfair. Lisa broke the silence. You know this isn't your fault, right? There was no but after it. No condition. Just truth that I swallowed and nodded, even though part of me didn't believe it yet. Her house in Hillsdale smelled like coffee and plants. There were books everywhere. Framed photographs. Cameras on shelves. The spare bedroom was already made up, clean and simple, like she'd expected me. That first night, we ate burgers on the couch and watched whatever I picked on Hulu. No one checked Ethan's mood. No one asked if this was okay with someone else. It felt revolutionary in its ordinariness. Over the next few weeks, we made plans. Real ones. College options. Scholarships. Part-time job at a local bookstore. Lisa asked questions I'd never been asked before. Who told you that? She'd say when I dismissed myself too quickly. You or them? That question cracked something open. I started noticing how many limits in my head weren't mine at all. How often I'd shrunk myself because it was easier for everyone else. The texts from home started coming in waves. Moms were long. I'm sorry you felt hurt, followed by paragraphs about stress, money, Ethan's struggles. Dads were short. Hope you're settling in. We miss you. Few weeks in, the tone shifted. They started asking about the shop. About Lisa. About whether I could talk to her. That's when it clicked. They didn't miss me, they missed what I could get them. And for the first time I didn't feel guilty for seeing it. And that realization was what pushed me toward the ultimatum I was about to give them. I got tired of wondering where I ranked in their priorities and decided to find out. I sent the message late one night, staring at the screen for a long time before hitting send. If you want me to even think about coming back, Ethan needs to move out. I didn't dress it up. I didn't soften it. He was 22. He had a job, friends, options. And more importantly, he wasn't a child who needed to be protected at all costs. I wasn't negotiating. I was testing them. The typing bubble appeared almost immediately. Then disappeared. Hours passed. Then days, then no response. That silence said more than any argument ever could. Life in Portland kept moving anyway. I got a part-time job at an independent bookstore a few blocks from Lisa's house. I came home every shift smelling like paper and dust instead of burnt espresso and stress. I learned regulars' names. I shelved books without rushing. No one asked me to manage someone else's emotions. That's where I met Jake. He was an engineering student who camped out at the back table with coffee and color-coded notes. We started talking over a shared outlet. Then coffee turned into walks, which turned into study sessions at the library that felt less like work and more like breathing. For the first time, my life orbited something other than my brother's mood. Then one night, everything crashed back and I noticed the car first. A dark sedan idling across the street. The engine stayed on. The headlights were off. A hooded figure leaned against it. My stomach dropped. Do you know him? Jake asked quietly. I swallowed. Unfortunately. Ethan stepped forward, looking exhausted and wired at the same time. His eyes flicked to Jake, dismissed him instantly. We need to talk, Ethan said. What are you doing here? Asked. How did you even find me? Mom gave me your address, he replied. Your schedule too. Of course she did. I'm here to talk some sense into you, he continued. You're trying to blow up the family because you didn't get a birthday party. Jake shifted closer to me. Hey, this is family business, Ethan snapped, then turned back to me. They're not throwing their son out on the street to feed your ego. I already knew the answer, but hearing it said that plainly still hurt. So that's it, I said quietly. Ethan shrugged. What did you expect? Then he grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise. Just enough to remind me of the power he thought he had. Come with me, he said. Call Mom and Dad. Tell Lisa you made a mistake. Jake stepped between us immediately. Let go of her. Ethan scoffed but released me. I rubbed my wrist, heart pounding, not from fear, but from certainty. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was who they chose, and now, I knew exactly where I stood, and in that split second, I knew whatever happened next was going to cross a line none of us could pretend didn't exist anymore. The second his fingers closed around my wrist, everything else blurred. His grip was hard enough that I knew I'd see marks later. Not crushing, not frantic. Just controlled. Possessive. "You're coming with me," Ethan said, low and certain, like this was already decided before I could react. Jake moved. He didn't shout. He didn't swing. He simply stepped in and pried Ethan's hand off my wrist with a strength that surprised all of us. "Touch her again," Jake said evenly, "and I'm calling the police." Ethan stared at him, stunned. Someone telling him no, really no, clearly wasn't something he'd practiced for. "You're serious?" Ethan scoffed. "Wow. Lisa and this guy really brainwashed you." Jake didn't flinch. "This is her," he said. "You just don't like that she finally has backup." I looked straight at my brother. "You crossed a line," I said. "You don't get to put your hands on me." He laughed, sharp and dismissive. "Stop acting like some abuse victim." Then he shifted tactics. "You're hurting everyone," he snapped. "Mom's devastated. Dad's humiliated. The shop is hanging by a thread. And this is what you're doing. Playing victim." Old Nora would have cried. Old Nora would have apologized for making things harder. Instead, I said, "I didn't break anything. I just stopped covering the cracks for you." He stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "I'm the one who matters here," he said finally. "Without me, this family falls apart." He nodded. "Then let it." He left after that, angry, rattled, defeated in a way he didn't yet understand. Back at Lisa's house, the red marks were already visible on my wrist. Lisa saw them and went very still. The kind of still that comes right before someone explodes. "We can file a report," she said carefully. "At least get it on record." I shook my head. "If he shows up again," I said. "If he touches me again, we go." She nodded. "That's enough." For 2 days after that there was peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't feel temporary. Then the message came. It was long. Carefully worded. From both my parents. Ethan was very upset. They could not believe I'd threatened to call the police on my own brother. They were not going to throw Ethan out of his home. "He is our son. He is struggling." They said I only wanted to come back on my terms. That I was punishing them. That they'd had to borrow money from friends and were humiliated after everything they'd sacrificed. Then the line that ended it: "If you choose to stay there, don't expect us to keep reaching out. We need to focus on the child who still cares about this family." There it was. Plain. Undeniable. I replied with 3 words. "Thank you. Goodbye." Then I blocked them all. Mom, Dad, Ethan, the family group chat. What I felt wasn't guilt. It was a strange, deep quiet. Like something heavy had finally snapped into place. Life didn't collapse after that. Continued. The bookstore. Learning regulars' names. The sticky register that jammed every afternoon. Coffee with Jake. Study sessions. Walks through Forest Park where no one knew my last name or my family history. Then a cousin tagged me in a post. The shop was under new management. It turned out that without Lisa's money, borrowed favors ran out fast. The shop sold quietly. Staff let go. Everyone said it had been tense and weird before the sale. My parents called it a business decision. Everyone else called it desperation. Some family members sided with my parents. Others backed away after hearing the full story. The perfect image finally cracked wide enough for people to see inside. Ethan didn't land on his feet. His social media filled with vague quotes about fake people and snakes in the family. Posts about new chapters and no dead weight. But without the shop, the built-in job disappeared. A new barista job followed, then ended quickly. Snapping at customers. Late arrivals. Arguments with managers. Credit card debt caught up to him. He moved into a cramped apartment with strangers. Borrowed money. From I'm carrying all the pressure to struggling to carry his half of the rent, I felt 2 things at once: sharp, ugly satisfaction, and a tired sadness. Both were true. I got accepted to Portland State with a scholarship. Lisa and I celebrated with takeout and cheap sparkling cider. Jake and I went to street fairs and music festivals where no one knew my story. My 19th birthday came quietly. Dollar store decorations. Lopsided cupcakes. Friends who showed up because they wanted to. The difference wasn't the scale, it was that I wasn't bracing for someone to ruin it. It was quiet, simple, and actually mine. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my parents had chosen differently. If they'd said, "Tonight is about your sister." If they'd apologized, really apologized. Maybe things could have been fixed. But I learned something instead. Love that only exists when you're quiet isn't loved. A family that only works as long as one person absorbs all the hurt is a system, not a bond. Sensitive and strong were never compliments. They were code. One will protect. One will expect to survive anything. I thought choosing myself meant I was selfish. The truth is, I didn't break my family, I just stopped hiding the fractures they'd built into it. So if you were standing in that kitchen on your 18th birthday, decorations up, guests invited, and your party got cancelled because someone else had a bad day, what would you do? Would you stay and keep trying to earn your place? Or would you walk out and trust that your worth isn't something your family gets to vote on? I've made my choice. That I'm curious.